it's an interesting fan base that I'm addressing this to. In that Montreal has a very passionate fan base, and part of doing season previews and previewing teams is it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. I'm good with my predictions and with where I'm predicting teams are going to go and where they're going to be for the season. But it's not easy because, again, people always point and say, well, look at last season. Look what they did this past season. It's, the problem is the NHL doesn't work that way. When I look at this team, I say, well, they lost Radulov. They lost Markov. And part of the reason they lost in the first round against the Rangers is they couldn't score. They traded out Sergachev, who was their best defensive prospect, likely would have played on their team this year. And you add Sergachev to this blue line, and it's better. But here's the issue. I point to the Sedins in Vancouver, and I say, are they still, top guys? No. When I look at Montreal and I see Plekanec still up there, I hesitate. Hesitate to say, yeah, he's worthy of being a top 2 center. And what I looked at roster resource, they had Danault as the number 1 center. Danault played well. He is not a first-line center in the NHL. So what does that leave you in Montreal? That leaves you with Drouin. That leaves you with Galchenyuk. And they both were on pace for 59 points if they played a full 82 games. I think it was 59 points this past season. So those are your top 2 players, and I've got an arrow here just in case whoever plays center. Because there's another option. There's another option they could consider, both of them at center. The problem is, I really think they want them to play together and see what kind of chemistry they have. Now, if you put Drouin at center, so if you put Drouin here, and Plekanec moves down to third line, and Danault moves to the wing, or whatever you're going to do with him, or Danault moves to fourth line and Mitchell moves to the wing, you could have a first line of Pacioretty, Drouin, and Gallagher. That's not bad. And then you'd have a second line of Galchenyuk. Lankinen is likely, and then Shaw could move up there, and you could have Shaw, Galchenyuk, and Lankinen. And then what you have is you have your sandpaper on both the first and second lines. You break up Shaw and Gallagher, and at almost any time in the game, you're going to have one or the other on the ice as an agitator. But then you lose whatever Montreal may want between Galchenyuk and Drouin. And again, is Jonathan Drouin or Alex Galchenyuk, are either of them a number 1 center in the NHL? Remember, you're going up against, just in that division alone, you'd be going up against Eichel in Buffalo, you'd be going up against Bergeron in Boston. I'll give him Detroit. I might give him Florida in terms of being able to knock off those first-line centers, but not Ottawa, Tampa, or Toronto. And I know Montreal fans, take shots at Toronto, but Toronto has a ton of young, talented, developing forwards who are going to get better. And in Montreal, in terms of young forwards who are going to get better, you've got Drouin, you've got Galchenyuk, you've got Lankinen. Danault is a maybe, and then everything else is just sort of either in a holding pattern. And then, how long does Max Pacioretty take the kind of abuse he takes before he says, maybe I shouldn't be captain, or maybe I shouldn't be Montreal Canadian anymore? The criticism that gets heaped on players in Canadian cities, I'm going to say this straight out, this is not a Montreal thing, is a lot. Pacioretty's been a lightning rod in Montreal for a while now. And I sometimes watch him play and I think, how long is it going to be before he says, I want out. I need a break from this. I want out. And then when you look at this lineup, I see a solid lineup, but losing Radulov is going to hurt. Hemsky does not overcome the loss of Radulov. Hemsky on the third line is good. Alex Hemsky on third line is fine. It's not the end of the world to have Hemsky on the third line. But I don't know. I just don't look at this top line, and I know they added Holland. I know they added Freeze. And I know Nikita Sherbak is down there. Sherbak's had his struggles. Hudon. Charles Hudon is one that Montreal fans are very high on. But you've got Byron on the wing here. Byron's not getting knocked out of the lineup. Byron should be third line. You got Carr, who Montreal fans, I've seen a few that aren't a fan of his, and Martinson. And so the depth is there. But again, you have the depth. But do you have that talent? Do you have enough scoring to overcome powerhouse teams in the playoffs? Do you have enough scoring right now to get to the playoffs? Now we get to the blue line. Weber, let's just say he scores 20. Can any of the rest of the defensemen score 5? Alzner, Davidson, Petrie, sure, he'll score 5. And go in and take a look now. Petrie had 8 goals this year. So let's pencil him in for 8. Then what? Then what do you have? Davidson, after the trade from Edmonton, had 0 in 10 games. Jordy Ben had 2 in 13 games. You're not betting on Schlemko or Alzner to score goals. So where does the offense from the point come from? And I've had people tell me, well, Montreal has a transition game. These guys can pass the puck. Oh, okay. You have to have a power play. And it has to be more than Weber. And Drouin and Galchenyuk on a power play could be fantastic. But who's on the other point? Petrie? Alzner? Alzner's a good pickup defensively. I think he's overrated. I do. I think he's overrated. But I wouldn't want to tell Montreal fans that. Not right now. Give them till about November, after 15 games have been played. When I make these predictions, I don't care whether I like a team or I dislike a team. If I did, the Canucks wouldn't be 7th. I'd look at the additions they've made, and I'd say, well, they're going to fight to get to 4th place somehow. But they didn't. So where does Montreal see themselves this year? Because I do see the occasional guy here that had a career year. I look at Paul Byron. Let's go ahead and take a look at Paul Byron here. Byron's 22 goals this past season. He had 43 points. The year before, he had 11 in 62 games. He had 18 points. The year before that, he had 6 goals in 57 games for Calgary. The year before that, he had 7 goals in 47 games for Calgary. Person can say, well, he didn't have the ice time in Calgary. Fine. You get your ice time through your play. And I'm not saying that to insult him. I'm saying it because that's the reality of it. I do not expect Byron to score 20 goals again. So what they've lost in Radulov, that's 54 points. Hemsky doesn't make up those 54 points. Drouin might, but they lost Markov off the points. Off the point. That's 36 points Markov had in 62 games. They need Markov back. If Markov signs, if they add Markov, if they talk him down to a 1-year deal, or if they give in and they give him a 2-year deal, my prediction with Montreal gets a little better because now their top 6 looks solid, and either Schlemko or Bend is pushed down to the number 7 defenseman. But the fact they brought in Morrow tells me he's going to be at the NHL level. He's going to be a guy they carry, and it tells me Markov's likely gone. And Montreal, really, they needed to keep Radulov and Markov. I get it. This past season, Montreal won their division. They were great. In that division. But if you look at actual points, they were behind Pittsburgh, they were behind Washington, they were behind Columbus. They would have been 4th in the Metro. I'm not saying they're not a good team. I'm saying that you have 31 teams now in the NHL. 15 of them are going to miss the playoffs. For my money, Montreal's 5th in that division this year. And I'm ready for a lot of downvotes on this. I am ready. That's why I'm posting this one early. Let's get this out of the way, and we'll put this out of the way. Before anybody says anything, yes, Carey Price is absolutely an all-world number 1 goalie. He's a superstar. He is absolutely the best goalie in the league. Carey Price can't do it by himself. Carey Price is still the best goalie in the league. But if you can't score goals and you don't have offense on the blue line, Carey Price is holding you in games. What Carey Price is doing is keeping them from a potential rough season. Because when I look at this team, Plekanec had 28 points. Danault had 40 points, 13 of them goals. Galchenyuk, if he plays center, 44 points this past season. Although there's been some debate. Is he able to play center? Problem is, Drouin's had the exact same criticism. Drouin and Galchenyuk have had the exact same criticism in their career. They've both been accused at points in time of being maybe a little arrogant and selfish. Pacioretty, 35 goals. 27 years of age. He can probably get you... Let's give Pacioretty 35 goals. Let's just do that. Let's say Galchenyuk can get 20. Let's say Galchenyuk is 25. Let's say Drouin gets 25. So you got 3 20-goal scorers. Which technically is more than they had this season. Betting on good health. I still don't see it. I don't see the depth that they need to win. And I know people are going to say he's just biased because he's an anti-Montreal person. I'm not. I look at what Montreal did this offseason and I say, wow. I really thought they'd keep Radulov, and I really thought Markov was still going to be there. Because Markov is an immediate improvement to the blue line. Yeah, he's getting older. Yes, he's slower. But he's necessary. And at some point, I think Montreal and Markov are going to circle back to each other. But for right now, it is hard to argue that offensively Montreal's better than last season. Yes, they added Drouin. They also lost Radulov. Plekanec is another year older. He had 10 goals last year. The odds of him having a bounce-back year, and he's 33 right now, they're slim. And I mean, they lost Beaulieu, they lost Emelin, and you can say, oh, well, that's fine because, you know, they got Schlemko, they got Morrow. it's hard to argue that's an upgrade. And I know there's Montreal fans who hate Beaulieu, and I know there's fans all over the NHL that hate Emelin, and I don't like Emelin either. But this blue line is hurting. It's hurting. You have 3 top 4 defensemen, and then you have 3... And it's hard to compete in today's NHL for an 82-game schedule. Like I said, 15 teams missed the playoffs. I hope I've explained this well enough. I know people are going to come in and say I'm anti-Montreal and that this is bias. But for me, Montreal is not a playoff team. And before anybody says anything, I don't think Boston is either. For this season, I don't think Boston is either. I'm excited about where Boston's headed, but I think there's going to be a market correction this year. And I'm not doing that one yet. But I'm throwing that out there because people are going to say, he's going to put Boston in the playoffs. That's ridiculous. No. I think Montreal's going to be a good team. I think they're going to be above 500, but I think they're going to have a very hard time because I think the Atlantic Division has got better. And I don't think they have. And as I go through this series and I do more videos, I really hope I can explain this in a way that I can still be friends with Montreal fans. I hope. So let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. If you're a Montreal fan, I know those buttons may be broken for you right now. I understand it. But remember, I didn't put the Canucks in the playoffs. And I don't project Boston as a playoff team right now either. And I will definitely get into that when that comes. But for right now, with apologies, that's where I have Montreal. Close to 4th. Not quite 4th. So, thank you very much for watching. And I'll talk to you again soon.